I just sold my 5-year-old computer parts on Jawah.gg, and honestly, I wasn't sure if they were worth anything. Would I make some solid cash, or was I about to get scammed?
Yeah, that sounds like a scam.
In this video, I'll show you exactly what I sold, how much I sold it for, and I'll talk about the process of listing your old computer parts on Jawah.gg. Stick around because the results might actually surprise you. So what exactly is Jawah.gg? So let's say that eBay and a gaming convention had a baby, and that baby was obsessed with PC hardware. That's what Jawah.gg would be. It's an online marketplace specifically built for buying and selling gaming PC components. Just think of it like the Facebook marketplace of tech without those weird messages of people messaging you at 2 a.m. asking if you'll trade a graphics card for their pet iguana. So I actually learned about Jawah after watching a Jay's 2 cents video. I recently built a new PC a couple months ago, and you know how it goes. When you have old parts, you think that one day you'll use them, but then that day never comes. So instead of letting my old PC parts sit there like forgotten relics, I decided to trade them in for cash on Jawah.gg. So the cool thing about Jawah.gg is that it's actually designed for gamers, tech enthusiasts, nerds, and people who understand the value of PC parts. Unlike eBay or Facebook Marketplace, where you have to fight off lowball offers where someone's trying to offer you 20 bucks for a 5-year-old graphics card.
I'd have $1.
Jawah's marketplace is actually filled with buyers who know what they're looking for. But the real question is, does this actually work? Can you really make money selling your old PC parts? Well, let's find out. Alright, so let's talk about what I needed to get rid of. So after years of faithful service, my old PC parts were ready to move on. Kind of like sending a kid off to college, instead of paying for tuition, I was hopefully looking to get paid cash for my old parts. So here's what I had listed: an Intel i9-10900K. This CPU was an absolute beast back in the day, and it can power anything that I threw at it. It can handle gaming and editing pretty easily, but there's newer chips out there that can do a lot more. So that made me ask myself a question: can anybody still use this CPU? So for my next listing, I had 64 gigabytes of G.Skill Trident memory. 64 gigabytes is more than enough for gaming, video editing, and having 273 Chrome tabs open all at once. I'd figure that this would be a hot item, but this is DDR4 RAM, and DDR5 RAM has been out for a few years already. For the next listing, I had an Asus ROG Maximus Hero 12. It's a Z490 motherboard, so it's pretty outdated. But back in the day, it had all the bells and whistles, more ports than I needed, and it practically screamed elite gaming setup. But then again, there's that question, would anybody still want this in 2025? Now for the next listing, I had a Corsair Crystal 570X case. It's a pretty nice case. It has glass panels on all the sides, but it's not the best for airflow. Now for this listing, I also included 6 Corsair fans, the power supply, which was an EVGA 850 watt power supply, and an old Kraken Z73 AIO. Now for the next listing, I had an NZXT F360. So it's basically 3 fans connected together and they're RGB. This is a spare part from my new build. It came with the AIO that I currently have in my current PC, so I didn't use it because I added 3 Corsair fans to it. And then finally, I had 3 NZXT fans with 3 Corsair fans. These are spare parts for my old build that I never used. So I figured that somebody can use them. Now don't get me wrong, all of these PC parts work like a champ, but when it comes to selling old PC parts, it feels like selling a used car. Sure, it runs, but the buyers might ask, has it been in any accidents? How many miles are on it? In this case, the miles are gaming marathons, video edits, maybe even 1 or 2 failed overclocking experiments. Now the CPU is still a powerhouse, but there's also newer, faster, shinier models out there. It's kind of like trying to sell last year's iPhone. Sure, there's somebody out there who will buy it, but they might ask a question, how much can you knock off the price? Now I figure that RAM tends to hold its value a lot more compared to the other PC parts. And the motherboard, well, that's where things get a little bit tricky. If your motherboard isn't compatible with the latest CPU, then that might be a hard sell. And of course, every buyer has their worries, like has it been overclocked before, does it have the original packaging, or can it run Crysis? So now that I have all the parts that I'm going to be selling, it's time to actually list them. So the process for listing parts on Jawah is pretty straightforward. But if you want to get the best results, you want to make sure that your listing is clear, detailed, and pretty specific. Now at this point, I just wanted to get rid of my old parts. I didn't really compare the prices to other people selling similar parts, but maybe I should have. First thing to do is start off with the title. Jawah, just like most marketplaces, work best with straightforward and keyword-rich titles. So instead of just listing it as old CPU for sale, here's what I listed it as. Intel Core 10900K, 10-core, 3.7 GHz processor. This makes it easier for the buyers to find my listing and know the key details of it. Next, I need to take good photos because buyers, they want to see exactly what they're getting. So I took clear, well-lit photos from multiple angles. So I included close-ups of the ports, the case fans, and any minor wear and tear. Now this should be a no-brainer for anybody selling anything online, When you're posting photos, you want to use a neutral background. Typically, white works best. In the description of my listings, I was honest about the condition of it while still highlighting the positives of the part. So here's an example of one of the listings. This helps build trust with the buyers so they know what they're getting, and it actually reduces the chances of returns and disputes. Now that I had all my parts, it was time to actually list them for sale on Jawah.gg. Thankfully, it's a lot easier than dealing with people on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, where you don't have to deal with lowball offers. Sometimes people will try to trade you a dirt bike for a graphics card, and no, I don't want that trade. Now, if you haven't created an account on Jawah.gg, it's pretty straightforward. Just like any other platform, you create an account and you verify it through your email. Now, the hardest part about listing anything for sale usually comes down to the pricing. And in my case, I really didn't do too much research on what other people were selling similar PC parts for. Maybe I should have, but I was really just trying to get rid of them. List it for too high and it's just going to sit there until the listing expires. But if you list it for too low of a price, you might actually pay someone just to take it off your hands. So I will break down how much each listing sold for, but first let me talk about Jawah's shipping. Now, the mistake I made from having my first listing is actually choosing to pay for the shipping myself. Since I couldn't find any information on how Jawah's shipping policies actually work, I chose to ship out the first listing myself. So when you list anything for sale on Jawah.gg, you can choose to use your own shipping label or use Jawah's shipping label. I thought if I use my own shipping label, I can charge the customer for shipping, but that's not how it works. So on my first listing, I charged $10 for shipping. And after that, I figured out how Jawah's shipping policy actually works. Since Jawah's shipping policy wasn't really too clear on who pays for the shipping, either you or the buyer, whether you choose to use your own shipping label or Jawah's shipping label. So on my first listing, I made the mistake of choosing to use my own shipping label. I did charge an extra $10 for shipping, but I had to use my own box and calculate the shipping myself. After that first listing, all the other listings, I chose to use Jawah's shipping label. So if you want to make it a lot easier for yourself, if you do plan to sell anything on Jawah.gg, just choose to use Jawah's shipping label. The customer pays for the shipping. Now let me talk about Jawah's cut. Since you are using their platform, they do take a fee. They take a percentage off of each sale, which isn't bad, knowing that they're connecting you directly to people who are interested and they know what they're looking for. But if you are listing a high ticket item, make sure to consider that fee when you're listing your item. It's kind of like paying a cover charge to get into the best club in town.
Some Farver beans and a nice bottle of Chianti.
Totally worth it, but you want to know what you're getting into beforehand. So here's everything I sold. First up is 64 gigabytes of RAM. This is DDR4 RAM. I listed it for $120 and $10 shipping. I listed it on December 11th and it actually sold the same day. I thought it was a mistake at first because I wasn't really expecting it to sell that fast. Jawah took $15.60 out of that sale. Next up is the Asus motherboard. I listed it for $220, but I negotiated with the buyer and actually sold it for $190. And Jawah took $22.40 out of that sale. Then I got the NZXT and Corsair case fans. These are basic 120mm fans. They sold for $30 and Jawah took $3.60 out of that sale. Then we got the Intel i9-10900K. I sold it for $240 and Jawah took out $28.80. Next up, we got the NZXT FanCore RGB fans. I sold them for $35 and Jawah took out $4.20. And finally, the Corsair 570X crystal case. This one actually took the longest to sell. I had to relist it after lowering the price several times. The reason why this took the longest is because the buyer had to pay $55 for shipping. It was a heavy case, but I also included the EVGA power supply, Corsair fans, the old AIO, and some RGB light strips. This one sold for $130 and Jawah took out $15.60. So after shipping and listing fees, I made a total of $657 with 39 cents, which isn't bad because I wasn't planning on using these parts again. And I originally told myself if I can get $350 for everything, I'd be happy with that. So I'll call that a win in my book. Now you might have noticed that I didn't list a graphics card for sale. In my old PC, I was using an MSI Supreme 3080. And at the time when I listed these parts for sale, I knew the 50 series graphics card were just about to come out. So my plan was to hold out until they came out because I planned on getting a 5090. But since finding a 5090 at retail price is actually harder than finding my real dad, I guess I'll hold on to the 3080 for now. So was selling my 5-year-old PC parts on Jawah actually worth it? Yes, it was. Jawah is a solid option for selling used PC parts because it's built for gamers and tech nerds, but just like any other marketplace, it could take some time for you to sell your parts. If you're just looking for a quick sale, you might have better luck just selling locally. But for a safe and straightforward selling experience, I would highly recommend selling on Jawah.gg. And if you want to watch the video where I built my current PC that I have in the background, just check it out right here. But have you ever sold anything on Java? If you have, let me know down in the comments. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button. And I also invite you to subscribe to my channel. Well, with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.